Okay, I think today what I want to do is I want to walk you all through and kind of do some examples in the New Testament. We're going to look at Matthew chapter 8, first three verses, and look at, get exposed to participles a little more. So, a participle, and Greek, you've probably heard this. Bill Mount says, a lot of people say this, that, ancient Greek is a participle loving language. And it's because there's so many participles. It's used so much. So participle is kind of like, I don't know, you've got children of mixed breed, right? You got part verb, part adjective. That's basically what a participle is. So so it has characteristics of a verb and an adjective, right? So with the verb, it would have tense and voice. With a verb, we have tense, voice, and mood, right? But since participle actually falls in the category of mood, even though, grammarians could argue it's not really technically a mood, that's where it falls, right? So that's why it's just tense and voice. And I mean, it's not exactly why it has tense and voice, but yeah, tense and voice. And then when the aspects of adjectives, we're going to kind of do a little grammar review on some things. We're going to look at, okay, let's remind ourselves what an adjective is, what a noun is, what a verb is, what an adverb is, those kinds of things. We'll get to that in a second. So characteristics of adjectives that are going to show up in a participle would be the case, in other words, nominative, genitive, dative, accusative. So case, gender, right, masculine, feminine, or neuter, and number. Is it plural? Is it singular? Right? So we're going to see that that the participle is going to have information embedded in it that's going to clue the person in. Is it singular? Is it plural? Is it masculine? Is it feminine? Is it neuter? Is it nominative? Is it genitive? Is it dative? Is it accusative? Kind of thing. But also, is it right here? Is it aorist tense? Is it present tense? Is it perfect tense? Kind of thing. And then voice. Is it active voice? Is it middle voice? Is it passive voice? Right? So yeah, real quick. Verb. What is a verb? A verb is typically an action word, right? It's typically the word that's conveying what action is going on in the sentence, right? What the subject is doing, right? Now, you can have like a to be verb, like some sort of existential type of, or stative type verb. Maybe you've heard that before, where like somebody's in a particular state. I'm happy. I'm not doing happy. It's not something I'm doing. It's I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm whatever, right? You can have those kind of verbs, but typically it's kind of an action sort of thing, right? But so we have, both in our participle, both of these characteristics of verbs and adjectives. So real quick, let's review adjectives. So adjectives describe something, right? So if we start with our noun, let's start with a noun, actually. Our noun is a person, place, or thing, right? So you've probably heard that before. It's a typical thing that's taught in schools. So it's a noun is something, right? Or someone, right? Or somewhere, right? So when we have an adjective, our adjective's job is to describe the noun. Sometimes an adjective, when in the absence of a noun in a sentence, the adjective can be used as the noun. That's called substantive use of the adjective, right? So you can have that. And we're going to see that our participle can behave in all these ways we're describing, right? So it can act like the noun, which be acted substantively as an adjective. Because when we talk about participles, we talk about them in either the adjectival sense of, it's being used adjectivally or adverbially, right? So since it's part verb, it's kind of conveying something like an adverb does, modifying the verb, right? So it can be used in a sense where it's actually conveying action, right? Because it's got qualities of a verb, right? So we'll see some examples, like we said in Matthew chapter 8 very soon. Just some examples of adjectives, just to be clear here. So George is our noun. George is tall. So here's an attribute of George. That's an adjective, right? George, he is short. Okay, he's not tall. Somebody say, no, I think he's short. And somebody say, he's fast though. Which implies how he runs, or or how he drives or something or whatever. And he's young. I mean, he's not old, right? So these are all three adjectives that are attributing some characteristics, some qualities, some description about George, right? So again, a verb is an action word. And so some examples of adverbs would be, typically in English we put ly at the end of an adjective and turn it into an adverb. And sometimes we have some adverbs that don't even have an adjective equivalent of it. But there's a lot of adjectives that can easily be turned into an adverb by just simply putting ly in the end, right? So we take quick, like we already used, and we make quickly. He ran quickly. That's how he ran. That's what an adverb is describing. It's describing how he ran. So, she read quickly. How did she read? Here's the action. There's the verb. Right, read, right? She read quickly, right? So here's the adverb that's modifying or describing how she read, how the action was done, right? And, so there's the idea. Yeah, so again, tense and mood conveyed towards the participle, gender, case, and number conveyed towards the participle. This is coming from the adjective world. This is coming from the verbal world here. And that's our participle. And again, the two flavors of participles we have in general, just to simplify, is adjectival or adverbial, right? Where the participle can act as an adverb or it can act as an adjective. And again, when we say it acts as an adjective, well, it can describe, absolutely, and we'll see some examples, but it also can act substantively, where it's actually acting as the noun, right? So there you go. So that's our starting point. Okay, so having had a little bit of that grammar review, and let's step into Matthew chapter 8, look at maybe the first 3 verses, and just see some participles, and let's discuss the different types of participles that we see. Okay. So this first sentence we have an interesting construction. It's called the genitive absolute, where basically, like we said, we have the first thing here, aorist. Basically, is what we have: aorist, tense, and then the mood would be participle, and then the voice would be active. That's what APA means, right? So that's what we have, and it's instead of NMS, which we'll look at this example, it's GMS, right? So it's genitive, masculine, singular. That's what we have, and that's katabantos. And what's the purpose of genitive absolute? It's a type of construction for participles. The purpose of it is when you have a sentence like here, right? This is actually an English version of this sentence if it's converted to where you're not actually using a genitive absolute participle. If we were to actually convert this to where we actually have a regular subject and a regular verb, this is what we would do: 2 clauses, where they, each clause has its own verb, its own subject. So this one is he is the subject, and then he did what? He went, he traveled, he went, he walked, whatever, right? And so katabino is the verb. And you join that together with the second one with the word and, which in Greek is kai, right? And so the subject in this one is okloi, right? You can see where I'm pointing, okloi. So that's crowd, right? It's plural, so it's crowds, right? And poloi okloi, so many crowds, right? Or, a large crowd, kind of thing. So the large crowds followed him. So the verb, past tense, aorist, indicative. So it has to be indicative mood when you have the aorist to actually get the simple past tense. And it's ekolutheson, right? Ekolutheson. Sorry, let me pronounce that better. Ekolutheson. Ekolutheson. So if I say tines ekolutheson, it's like who followed. Auto. Auto is, that's who they followed, right? Which is, to him, they followed him. And it's okloi, poloi. Okloi, poloi, ekolutheson. So if I say tines, it's like who? Well, the answer is okloi, poloi. So, many crowds, or, a large crowd. So yeah, in Greek, this is plural, and the adjective, poloi, which in the lexicon, pop open lexicon, you're always going to have the masculine singular version of it, which is polus, right? So here we have poloi, plural, and as you can see, it says NMP, which is nominative case, masculine gender, and then P for the number, which is plural, right? So yeah, if we wanted it to be a simple sentence, we could totally just say kind of what I thrown together here. This is past tense, but we could just as easily make this to where it's present tense just for starting, just so we can see the verb better. Present tense, right? And so kata baine. So he is going down from the mountain. Apotu orus. Apotu orus. So here's a prepositional phrase. Here's the preposition. This preposition using the genitive for his object of the preposition, for his noun. Then it means from, away from something, right? From the mountain. And this is the genitive, third declension for a neuter noun. There's to oros. So the mountain, right? So tu orus is the genitive, right? So apotu orus. So autos katabaine, he's going down from the mountain, but this is actually in the aorist. We'll talk about it. So it's past tense. So if we was to make this simple past tense, just katebe, autos katebe apotu orus. So that would be the aorist indicative, and make the simple past tense. He went down from the mountain, right? But and this this subject is he, right? Whereas the subject over here is large crowd, right? So we'll get to that. I was actually doing something else with that, but we'll get to that in a second. So so it's he went down from the mountain, autos katebe apotu orus, and the large crowds followed him. So that would be ekolu thesan auto okloi poloi. So that would be this other sentence. So we would join that by kai. So let me just get this kind of out of the way because that might be confusing. So we would say, I could say okloi poloi. Now in Greek, word order is very flexible because it's called an inflected language, which means the inflections on the the suffixes, the prefixes, especially suffixes, conveys lots of information. That's the way the language works. Hebrew's that way, Latin's that way, a lot of languages are that way, at least ancient languages. But English is not so much like that. There's very little conveyed in inflections in English. One example would be plural. Plurality is inflected. Simple, or past tense. We typically, not always, will take a verb stem, we'll put ed on the end, and that makes it past tense, right? So that's the idea of inflecting, So, but English is very little an inflected language. So because it doesn't have the ability that Greek has, where Greek is not reliant on word order to know, oh, this noun is the subject, oh, this noun is the direct object, kind of thing, or whatever. We know that we use the case system. That's, the nominative case is our subject, genitive case, is for this, and dative case is for that, and accusative case is for that, kind of thing. And so, that gives us our information. So we can move stuff around in the sentence. So, yeah, it doesn't have to be verb like we see here. Ekolu thesan auto. They followed him, and then we got the direct object after, after the verb, and then they had the subject. Like, it doesn't have to be like that. We could put the subject first. Okloi, poloi. Typically, what Greek does is it puts what it wants to be first as the one that would be more emphasized. So it uses word order a lot of times for emphasis reasons. So yeah, auto. Yeah, there we go. So, autos katebe apotu orus kai okloi poloi ke luthe san auto. Or, we could even have auto first, right? We could totally say, if that's what we wanted to emphasize, we could have it the way I have it right now, but maybe we could say that, and then, so if we really wanted to emphasize, Jesus, who they're following. Auto ekolu thesan okloi poloi. I mean, you could totally do that. But, and then sometimes word order is not necessarily about what we're emphasizing to. I don't want to convey the idea that that's always the case, but many times that's the case. So anyway, so here's where I have two separate sentences. They have their own verb, they have their own subject, and I combine them with my conjunction kai, which is the meaning of and, right? But with participles, eliminate the word and you join sentences together where one sentence has to have the main verb, which is what we have here, and then the other one is a participle, and that's what we got here. Katabantos de autu. Apotu orus. Now, you may have noticed already that okloi poloi is the subject over here, and then we had a different subject over here, where we have the subject in the genitive, and then the participle, which kind of behaving like the verb, in the genitive. They both have to be in the genitive. The participle and the subject of that participle, the noun, right? So, in this case, a pronoun. So, autu katabantos, right? Katabantos autu. So he going down, right? Now, this is in the aorist case, right? And so that is usually conveying the idea of this action happening before the main verb action, right? So even though they followed him, and that's in the past tense, we know that he went down first, and then they followed him, right? Which makes sense when you think about it. So now, because we have two different subjects, that's why it's in the genitive. So we call that the genitive absolute. Latin has a very similar, basically the same phenomenon as well. So anyway, katabantos de autu. So now this is the aorist case for katabaino, and so, but as we said, and again, it's in the genitive. So this is basically translated the idea of, he having gone down from the mountain, large crowds followed him. That's basically that idea. Yeah. So, which is real similar to the way we wrote this sentence up here. So, hopefully that's clear. And kai idu, behold and look, right? And then now we have lepros, proselthon. So, proselthon, we have a participle there, right? And typically, if we have, this is adjectival form of the participle being used substantively, usually an adjectival participle, not always, has the article, right? If it doesn't have the article, a lot of the times it's adverbial, but in this case it's not. It's actually acting adjectively, specifically as a noun. So we call that substantive use of the noun, or substantive use of the adjective to behave as a noun, right? So, and then it's got an adjective over here, lepros, to actually describe that noun. And we can think of this as kind of like I was doing here. Let me get I guess I do have it. Okay. So if I just do this, let me get rid of the adjective first, just to be clear. Ho proselthon. So that's typically when you use an adjectival, especially when you use it as, substantively as a noun. That's usually the way you'd say it, like the one that's going towards somebody. So, this, you may recognize it, pros erkomai. Pros erkomai is the verb. And if we wanted to make it a participle in the present tense, it'd be erkomenos, pros erkomenos, right? And that would have a different idea, different purpose for why over here it's in the aorist, pros elthon, right? And we'll talk about that in a second, so let me just set that aside. But proselthon is what we have, and its adjective that describes it is lepros. So here's somebody who has leprosy, right? And because it's indefinite, it doesn't have the article, right? If we want to say the one that has leprosy is going towards him, and it's definite, the one going, then we would have the article, but we don't have the article. So it's like a one that has leprosy is going towards him. So, so if we were already talking about somebody that had leprosy or whatever, and then we use the article, we would know the one that we've already introduced into the context. We know who we're talking about now. That's why it's definite. It's a definite noun. the one that we were just talking about. We've already clear who we're talking about. This one is going towards him. He's got leprosy, kind of thing. But it's a one, so it hasn't been introduced. It's indefinite. It's like, hey, some guy that's got leprosy is like going towards Jesus, And what's he doing? He's, falling down and bending down and worshiping and prosekune. So that's imperfect. You might see the IIA. Imperfect. The second I is indicative mood, and then A is active voice. So imperfect tense. Yeah. So yeah, if it was present tense, it'd be proskune. Proskune. He was bending down and worshiping him, right? But we got that auxiliary in there that basically says, no, past tense. But it's not aorist, right? Remember, aorist is simple past tense. If you have the indicative mood, aorist is simple past tense. It's got to be indicative mood or it's not simple past tense. And what that means is when it's aorist and it's simple past tense, that's something that happened in the past, but you don't really know when. You just know it happened in the past. It was like 5 minutes ago, it was 5 years ago, 5 days ago, who knows? Something that happened in the past. And it's just talking about, it's like this event that's like, who knows how much time it took. It's just, But when we're using the, like we have here, the imperfect, right? Yeah, let's see. It'd be prosekynese if it was aorist. Yeah, it would be aorist. This would be the way it would be prosekynese. Let me check that just to make sure. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, prosekynese. Yep. Okay, just checking myself there. So. Yeah, so if it was aorist and it's just something that happened in the past, we don't really know when it happened, we don't really know over what length of time or whatever. But the imperfect is typically used something that happened in the past, but it's emphasizing over, it's about emphasis of time, it's emphasizing over an extended period of time. So it's like this was happening. It happened in the past, but it was happening. This was happening. So listen to the words in English. Was happening. It's not it happened, like... it happened and don't really know when, don't really know how long, like there's no information conveyed about that. It's just like this was something that was happening, right? So that's what we got here with the imperfect. And then because the participle is in the aorist, again, as we said, the aorist participle happened before the main verb. Here's our main verb. So before that happened, before he is bowing down and was worshiping, right? This happened. The one that was, actually it's adjectival, but it's the one that was coming. Actually, it's adjectival. So but the one that was coming, it is an aorist though. So he was coming with leprosy. Let's see, I guess since it's adjectival, I guess there's less emphasis on that idea. But and then we look over here. That was that guy that was, bowing down and worshiping. Again, this participle was being used together with this main verb. And then we say legon. And so now we got a adverbial participle over here, legon. Right? And so because this is present tense, this is happening at the same time as this. So as he's bowing down and worshiping, and again, it's imperfect, so it's happening in the past, but it's over an extended period of time, he's saying these words while he's doing that, right? So that's kind of the idea, the timing that's conveyed there. It's kind of hard to get that kind of precision in English. Let that sink in. Go back and watch this video over, at least this portion, again, if you're not quite getting that. The timing is this has happened simultaneously with this, and this is happening in the past from when the person that's writing this, and it was happening over an extended period of time because it's in the imperfect, right? So it's a progressive idea with regard to time, right? And this participle again was being used as a noun, saying, someone that was leprous, he was coming towards him, right? Kai idu, behold, right? and what was he saying? Kyrie ean theles. So here we've got a verb, theles is in the subjunctive and it's present tense. So if you are willing, or if you want, if you desire, if you're willing, and then he says this statement that follows after it. Dunasai katharisai me. Dunasai me katharisai. So he's emphasizing me before he says katharisai. But, dunasai katharisai me. So you are able to cleanse me. Dunasai me katharisai. Dunasai katharisai me. You are able to cleanse me. So if you're willing, so subjunctive, and then factual with the indicative. You are able. It doesn't matter that's present tense so much, but yeah, it kind of does for the context of what we're talking about. But the point is, it's indicative mood, meaning it's factual. So here we got subjunctive, like, if the possibility that you're willing, it's something that might happen, that, might be true, whatever. And then if that's true, if you're willing, then factually, the guy that's saying this whole lepros proselthon, whole lepros, the one that's coming towards him that has leprosy, he's saying that ean su theles, epsilon iota, that's what we get with aeon, right? We got this, a, if, and then we got on, and you combine those two together, that's basically what happens there. So a, on, theles, aeon su theles, aeon theles su, or su is implied, but just for emphasis, aeon su theles, and then the factual part comes. Dunasai katharisai me. You are able to cleanse me, right? So this guy knows this, right? That's conveying faith, the way he's stating that. If you're willing, humility, confidence. Shu, oh kurie, dunasai katharisai me. You are able to cleanse me. It's not you might cleanse me, might be able to. No, it's you can, right? But it's if you're willing. Oh Lord, you're Lord. You call the shots. You're the one in charge. So subjunctive mood. If you're willing, Lord, you're able to do this. There's no doubt in my mind, because it's in the indicative mood. Dunasai katharisai me, right? All right, let's keep going. So we got another participle phrase here. Kai ekteinas teinchera. So here we got aorist participle, right? So the verb is ekteino. I extend, or I reach out, I stretch out my arm or whatever. Ekteino, ekteino. You can see that's where we get the word extend, I'm sure. So if right there. So ekteinas. Ekteinas. Teinchera. So nominative, masculine singular. Same guy. He's extending out his hand, and he, let's see here. Ekteinas teinchera, heipsato autu, legon, thelo. Okay. So now we can see, because this is not genitive, it's not genitive absolute, otherwise, then this would be the arm, like if this was, ekteinatos, and then right here, lepros proselthon, right? So let's say lepru pros el thontos. Yeah, so genitive, right? So if we took this up here, which was the guy, that's how it was described, right? So the leprous one that's coming, is extending. So if this was meaning him, then we would have this in genitive absolute, because there's no kai in there where this is a verb, it's a participle, right? And it's, using the same. So this is conveying that it's the same subject. Heipsato autu legon thelo. So we can tell by the context the subject is hokurios, right? So but if it was written genitive absolute, then this would be the leprous one that's coming, and he's extending out his hand, right? But that's not the case, right? And then we could have heipsato. This guy, right? Heipsato. And then I can say tu lepru proserthontos. So, and he touched the leprous one coming towards him, right? He says autu, he uses a pronoun, but that's, that's fine. So, I mean, that's what he says, it's fine. Uncooperative stuff here. Let's see. Yeah, so autu. Where are we at here? Legon, right? And then legon. So now we have another adverbial participle. It's in the present tense, and while he's touching him, he's saying this. And who is it? Ho kurios. Heipsato. Right? Heipsato ho kurios. O ho Jesus. Ho kurios autu. Right? So here's the subject. Here's the verb heipsato. And then here's the direct object. This is who he touched, right? And again, heipsato, I think I mentioned it, maybe I didn't. Heipsato, this, no, I guess I didn't. This verb, the direct object is in the genitive. So whenever you see, because we know that 90% of the time, or 85% or whatever it is, some high percentage of the time, most of the time, or just about any verb, most of the time, the direct object is in the accusative. That's the norm, right? But every once in a while you bump into a verb and you got to memorize this. Okay, this particular verb, like this is haptomai, right? It is, or hapto is the way you'll find it in the lexicon, which is active voice, right? But haptomai is the middle passive form, which is what we're using here, right? So this would be, if it was present tense, it'd be haptatai. Ho kurios haptatai. So the Lord is touching him. But this is aorist, indicative. So it happened in the past. Some, punctiliar is how they say it in English, but hapax is the word that means like one time. Like it's like a short duration event. That's basically what we're conveying with the aorist indicative. So it happened in the past, don't really know when, and it was a short duration kind of description anyway. It doesn't mean the event itself was short duration, but it just means like when it's being described, it's just, yeah. So he touched him, the Lord touched him, and autu touched him. So it's going to be, this is who he touched, it's going to be in the genitive, right? So haptatai is that verb. If it's just hapto, I'll just mention this. Hapto in the active voice is typically used to like say that you're starting a fire, a fire, hapto pur, ego hapto pur, I'm starting a fire. Or maybe a farmer is using this verb to say that he's, taking the yoke and all that with the oxen in the field, and he's snapping them in place. And he might use hapto to describe that, something like that. Yeah. So let's see where we at here. So again, this is ho kurios ektenas teinhera. So having extended his hand, heicher is what this is in the lexicon. Heicher, this is the accusative. So teinhera, third declension, right? Noun. Heipsato autu, legon. And so at the same time, heipsato, at the same time he's touching him, he's saying ego thelo. Thelo. Emphasis, you can say ego thelo or just thelo. I'm willing, I want to, And then he says to him in the imperative aorist and passive voice, but katharisthete, or katharistheti, be cleansed, become clean, right? And so, in my opinion, when this kind of stuff is going on in the spiritual realms, like, it's in the imperative because, he's commanding the demons to, like, leave him. And that's, cleansing him. That's clean, clean, making him clean. So the soul can either be, polluted with demons or be cleansed and then the Holy Spirit come. So, all right. I think we'll stop there. So, here's a verb. It's not really a... there's a bunch of verbs. No participles. So we'll stop there. Hopefully that helps you. Maybe watch this video a few times. This will help you with participles in your reading of your New Testament. All right, God bless y'all.